Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we remember Bill Thompson of Wallace and Ladmo fame. Bill Thompson died yesterday. Also tonight, how best to regulate the increasing use of drones and see how a theater group is using the stage to teach life lessons to kids. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. New information on yesterday's controversial execution of an Arizona inmate. State Department of Corrections Director Charles Ryan says a review of the nearly 2-hour-long execution of double murderer Joseph Wood is already underway, as ordered by Governor Brewer. Ryan also criticized the media for calling the execution botched, saying there is no evidence to support that claim. The procedure took about 6 times as long as normal, and Wood gasped for breath hundreds of times before dying. That prompted some to call for a moratorium on executions. Ryan says that evidence shows that Wood was fully sedated 3 minutes after the injection of the execution drugs and that he remained sedated until he passed away. Ryan says that an autopsy completed today shows that the IVs were, quote, perfectly placed. Ryan says a review will continue regarding the unusual length of the execution, and today the Attorney General's office said it will not seek any execution warrants until that review is completed. Well, for decades, Arizona kids would literally run home from school to watch Wallace and Ladmo, a local show that was a blend of cartoons and skits with humor that was often aimed at adults. Yesterday, the creator and star of the show, Bill Thompson, passed away. Pat McMahon was one of the co-stars of the Wallace and Ladmo show for most of its 35-year run, and Pat is here now to talk about a man he calls his brother. He was kind of your brother, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm an only child. They were both my brothers. And I know that they would say today, were they here, that even though you invite us on to talk about the Wallace and Ladmo show, you still can't have a Ladmo bag. I'm sorry.
Yes,
You've been begging for years.
Everyone was. Who was Bill Wallace?
Bill
Thompson.
Wallace
I'm sorry.
Thompson.
Bill
Well,
Thompson.
he is known as that.
Wall boy.
Yeah, because neither Lad nor I ever called him Bill.
Yeah.
Much less Bill Thompson. And rarely did he ever turn around and recognize anyone who did call him that, because he was Wallace virtually the entire time, 35 years, a little bit over that. And I joined them in 1960. The show had already been on the air for nearly 6 years. And so I wound up being the new guy for 30 years. But can you imagine any kind of a vehicle in this business when you already have a career that's 5 or 6 years long, and then comes the rest of it?
Yes. What your initial impression
of Wall?
Of Wall boy?
Well, a prankster, a quiet, private person who had a bizarre sense of humor. I can't think of a better word than bizarre. Irreverent. Not at anybody's expense unless that anybody was full of himself. He delighted in poking holes in balloons. And that, of course, would include almost all the politicians, particularly those that appeared on the show.
Oh, I'm sure, yes.
But it was terrific because Wall was a guy who was in charge but never managed things. And Lad and I would show up, and then we would talk about the bits that we would do. He had a framework of the kinds of stuff that appealed to him, usually out of the news. And then we would talk about how we would do it, what character, and then we would do it. It was improvisational theater.
Improvisational theater, but did Bill Thompson, did he write stuff down? Did he have just a clear vision of, and it just sounds like his vision was see-do, see-do. I mean, did he have a clear vision? When you first met him, did he know what he wanted to do with that show?
When I first met him, I was in the news department at Channel 5, had just been hired, and I didn't care that much about preparing the news. That seemed like a less than entertaining project. And so instead of putting the news together as a professional would do, I would go downstairs to Studio A to watch the Wallace and Ladmo show because I just fell in love with it. And one day he looked over and he said, I have inadvertently written a 3-man comedy bit, Pat. This was during a break, and we need a third guy. Would you possibly come over and join us and help us? And I wound up helping then every day for 30 years. I had no idea what kind of, and please know I don't use the G word that easily. I had no idea what kind of a true genius he was, flowing with ideas and all of these things, most of it out of contemporary topical things. And he was incredibly creative, so humble that he never wanted to be known as an actor or a comedy writer. You know what he wanted to be known as? The guy with the derby.
Just it sounds to me, and you tell me, it sounds to me off screen, off stage, he was very similar to what we saw with that derby on stage. Was he that similar or a little different?
A little quieter. A little quieter off. And remember, as a straight man, he was very disciplined. There was nothing that Wallace truly appreciated in all of the years I was with him, and Ladd too. Nothing he appreciated more than Ladd getting a laugh or me getting a laugh. And that's one of the reasons I think that the chemistry happened, because nobody was stepping on one another's lines. He was really listening. As we're talking right now, I could have walked into the set, and since you did work on the set
I did.
During the Wallace show,
I did.
You know this happened. I would walk in, there would be a prepared bit that would be prompted, and we thought that it would be a good idea to have lines every once in a while that we had actually prepared. And then some poor guy had to actually follow where we were, because the character would walk in and go totally and completely off script before we started. But Wallace listened and paid attention to everything you said and immediately jumped into that new possibility for laughter.
Yes, and the timing, impeccable. I mean, people underestimate timing. That show, if you just watch it, it's like the old Odd Couple TV series. Forget about everything, just watch the timing.
Yeah, well, and it was everything. Ladd grew up as the child of a policeman in Cleveland, and his talents were totally directed to baseball, and was considered for a professional contract by Hank Greenberg, who sent him to Arizona to go to school and get a few of the rough edges off. Went to the wrong school. Hank Greenberg intended for him to go to the U of A, and he spent 4 years as a letterman at ASU. Wallace, meanwhile, came out here, part of the art department at Channel 5, and one day management said, hey, we've got these cartoons, this is 54, we've got these cartoons, these Crazy Cat cartoons, and nobody wanted to even touch the idea of being a kid show host because it lacked dignity. And Wallace said, that's my kind of show.
That's me, huh?
Yeah.
What made Wallboy laugh? What made him laugh?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. The first thing that I think of, us. We did. He wouldn't break up, but you could just see the joy in his face when something was working. And if you would ad-lib something that he had no idea was coming, oh, he loved that. He didn't like corny comedy so much. Liked Mel Brooks. He liked cutting-edge stuff, that kind of thing. He loved Johnny Carson.
Yeah, didn't everyone though? I mean that again, timing, such a factor. We only got a couple of minutes left. Was he ever surprised by the likes of a Steven Spielberg or an Alice Cooper letting him know how important he was to their upbringing?
He was in awe. He was the kind of guy that could be a huge fan, and because Alice was watching the show and almost memorized bits, as he then grew into the superstar that he was. Couldn't believe that Alice still remembered the local show. And Steven, I ran into just a few months ago when he was in town with the symphony, and he was delighted to go over old times, and I gave him a Steve Mo bag.
Oh, good for you. Last question now. you know, the last show was what, 89? Was that the last show?
The last day of '89.
Yeah. Does all of this seem, when you look back, does it all seem like a lifetime ago, or does it seem like only yesterday?
Ted, it can't seem like longer ago than yesterday, because yesterday several people stopped me somewhere and said, "Did I ever tell you when I didn't win the Ladmo bag and the kid next to me did? Or did I ever tell you when I was at Legend City? And did I ever tell you about playing baseball on Ladmo's team?" Hey, that's yesterday, today, and seems like it'll continue to tomorrow.
Indeed, and the bottom line is, for Bill Thompson, for Wallboy, call him what a life well lived, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Yeah, we are all grateful. Thank you so much, Pat.
You
We
bet.
appreciate it. The increasing use of drones in society is indicative of a new technology with a lot of potential, but it's also making for privacy and regulation concerns. Here to talk about legal issues surrounding drones is James Arrowood, an attorney with the Fruitkin Law Firm in Scottsdale. Yeah, Scott, good to have you here.
Thanks
for joining.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get started with a definition. What is a drone?
Well, a drone, it kind of depends on who you ask, of course. There's a military drone, which people have seen. But now I think what's really concerning people are these what are smaller UAVs or unmanned aerial vehicles. And depending on whether you ask the FAA or an individual, it used to be that there was a rule put out in 1981 about what's called model aircraft. And that kind of fell outside of the FAA's regulatory rules. All right, and that allowed hobbyists to fly model airplanes in parks and places like that. Very expensive hobby though, so it wasn't something that most people could access, and the people who did were in clubs and they kind of self-regulated. Now we've gotten to a place where there's very small rotary type vehicles that can stand in place and surveil areas, and you can get them for a few $100s. So everything's kind of gone out the window as to what is a UAV or a drone.
So again, my liability, like what would be my liability for flying a drone? Those legal aspects, what am I responsible for if I send my drone up to the heavens?
Well, like anything, you would be responsible if you injured somebody, for instance, or if you caused property damage with any piece of property. If you were to throw a baseball and break a window, for instance, there would be similar liability issues. But the problem really is with a UAV, it's very, very hard right now to track who may own that. And you can go out of line of sight. So somebody could be in a building and flying a drone or a UAV somewhere, cause damage, and it would be nearly impossible to identify them.
So is licensing a must? How do you figure out who's got the drone that just did that?
Well, presently the FAA is saying that everybody should be licensed and certified pilot to be flying these under certain conditions and what have you, but the truth is people aren't. And I personally think that there needs to be some technology involved, much like you have a license plate on a car, and if the car, or a serial number even, if you had something similar, but it would probably be electronic, maybe like an RFID, that then coordinates with cell towers, because we already have a system in place for pinging on cell towers and identifying the source of the ping. That would be a simple solution and probably a few dollars.
So tracking capability would be probably make at least better sense, you think?
Better sense than maybe licensing, although, for instance, you can get a motorcycle endorsement.
Yes.
And it would probably make sense that somebody get an endorsement to fly these things. The problem really is your bad actors, criminals, things like that, they're so simple to fly, and in fact, you don't even need to know how to fly one now. You can actually pick a point on a map and then pick another point on the map and make this thing fly point to point and land, for instance, and do it all via computer. You really don't need to know how to fly it.
If there's a point in time in the future where there are so many, it turns into the Jetsons with so many drones flying around, buzzing around here and there, again, what is going to be needed as far as regulations are concerned?
Well, I've got some strong opinions on that. I think that right now we have, on the federal level, the FAA is trying to determine where its rules and regulations apply, and there's been some problems with that because drones have gotten so small now that the FAA regulations used to just apply to bigger things, okay? And people have argued successfully recently that they're not subject to the FAA rules, and that creates a big problem, of course. Now, the FAA's trying to enforce it. They just issued a bunch of subpoenas in New York to some real estate agents who are using them to fly around New York. I think the solution is going to have to be coming up with some sort of way of having essentially lanes in the sky, as it were.
Yes.
And I think Arizona ought to be a leader in that, and they're just not right now.
And lanes in the sky, but I can see these things, buoys in the sky as
Absolutely.
well, marking spots for other aircraft or UAVs to come and go. I mean, the whole 9 yards.
Well, and that's not a bad idea, practically speaking, maybe in 20 years where you have some lanes that east, west, north, south, those sorts of things. But right now, for instance, Texas has some good laws on this, okay? And in the terms of a state being proactive, they've addressed the law enforcement side, which is warrantless surveillance, which most people are worried about.
Yes.
How does law enforcement use it? When can you use it in an emergent situation like the firefighters in Yarnell? I mean, that was a situation where you had a spotter and then they were in a bad spot, and certainly drones could save lives. I mean, that's 100%. So we need to have exceptions for that, but then we also need to have criminal penalties for people that are misusing them in the civil context and then also commercial context as well.
Indeed, and I would imagine commercial context would be relatively easy in the sense of you're making money off of what you're doing, but as far as the privacy concerns, how deep do those concerns go, and what are you seeing out there as far as how the industry, how the drone world is handling this?
Well, the drone world's disjointed in a lot of ways, so there hasn't been kind of a uniform sense of that. But certainly in surveillance, I think people are worried about their backyard, somebody hovering over them watching their dinner party or something, and that's a real concern. Right now, you don't have an expectation of privacy. For instance, somebody who can afford a helicopter could theoretically fly over and videotape your backyard if it were open. So it's not much different in that sense, but we know now that it might be a nosy neighbor, for instance.
Right.
And I think the Texas law does a good job of addressing that in the sense that it provides criminal penalties, misdemeanor, if you have intent to view somebody surreptitiously without their permission,
Okay,
and,
yes.
over private property. So I think that's a great partial solution. But the problem is tying that intent and being able to identify who's using that drone.
And we talk about drones, we think about various sizes of UAVs and these sorts of things, but they can be teeny tiny too, can't they?
Well, there's something called MAVs, or micro aerial vehicles, and not just aerial vehicles, but things that might look like a rat or something else that could go around. So micro vehicles that are autonomous, okay? And I mean, that's just a whole new world. There really needs to be some things that identify from the manufacturers, for instance, from the get-go. So somebody couldn't, for instance, buy one of these without it being somehow encoded. And that's not a hard fix, and it ought to be legislated, it ought to be in the rules.
Is that happening?
I haven't seen it, and I certainly haven't seen it in Arizona.
Yeah.
There's been some minor attempts. In 2013, there was, I believe it was Jeff Dye out of Chandler, tried to put some law enforcement drone laws in place, and those didn't get pushed through. But think about the use of this. I mean, if you were to put drones over the border, for instance, and give the Border Patrol access on a larger scale, far more effective than 1,000 National Guardsmen, for instance, because National Guardsmen have no ability to make arrests, no ability to do anything. But if you have drones that are stationary, very inexpensive, far less expensive than $6,000 per guardsman, that you just fly up there and they identify. I mean, there's just great uses for this, and it needs to be in place.
And let's talk more about the potential use of drones in a variety of ways, commercially speaking. We're talking about some of the concerns and the regulations that might be needed, some of the positive potential for drones.
Well, there's just unbelievable potential, and Arizona ought to be a leader in that for a variety of reasons. We know Amazon has been very public about their want to use these to deliver packages, for instance. And maybe they're right. Maybe they're a company with the money and the resources to create a lot of sets of rules and be the experimenters. I mean, ConocoPhillips, I believe, has them for oil lines in Alaska, safety. I mean, sending people out in the winter, things like that. So there are a number of good uses economically for them. And why isn't Arizona taking the lead on that? It ought to.
Why isn't it taking the lead on that?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. I mean,
So from where you sit, if I'm a lawmaker, your biggest concern about drones and your biggest hope for the future for drones?
Well, misuse, certainly personal or national security. I mean, anything that hurts people is my biggest concern, okay? My biggest hope for the drone use is that we figure out a way to maximize, certainly on the state level, the proper use of them for law enforcement, for saving lives, and for economic value. And it can be done. It's not reinventing the wheel. We went through this 100 years ago with cars, with motor vehicles. Okay, the only real difference here is that you're in a three-dimensional space as opposed to a two-dimensional linear space. But it can be done. It's not rocket science. We've done it before.
Will it be done? I mean, last question here. In another 20, 30 years, are we going to see the Jetsons with stuff buzzing around over us?
You're going to see the Jetsons. And it gets even further than that. If you could imagine, you could have a guide drone that's linked to you, for instance, through a watch, what we call a wearable, all right, that follows you around. Maybe you're going on a hike or something, and it could carry your water for you. I mean, it's essentially an aerial donkey or something, a mule. There are so many applications of it, and it's coming. So rather than be afraid of it, let's be proactive and let's do something about it. I like to get ahead of things. I don't like to be watching what everybody else. Why is Texas taking the lead on this?
Right.
Why is that happening?
Well, there's a brave new world out there, and I guess we're going to face it sooner or later. Very good information. Good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
In tonight's edition of Arizona Art Beat, we look at how the Harry Potter series has turned an entire generation of kids and a few adults into avid readers. And as producer Shauna Fisher and photographer Scott Olson show us, the boy wizard's adventures make the perfect backdrop for a theater class about life lessons.
The classrooms at the Child's Play campus in Tempe are filled with wizards in training. Spells are being cast, potions are being created, and imaginations are in overdrive. It's Harry Potter class, and it's a hit.
I like that you can use magic and that, so you don't have to do chores, you could just poof them, done.
Child's Play has been a part of Arizona's arts community since 1977.
Child's Play is a lot of things. Child's Play is first and foremost a professional theater for young audiences. So that means we have, entire adult staff of creative directors, designers, and actors performing plays specifically for young and family audiences.
Summer workshops include theme classes like the Harry Potter one. Instructors use the story of the boy wizard to teach kids life skills.
And so the students being able to learn things such as teamwork, cooperation, confidence for public speaking, confidence for interacting socially with that group. Collaboration is a learned skill. We're not born knowing how to collaborate with a group. And for most of these theme-based classes, they are working together, devising together as a class. So they really learn how to share their opinion as well as to incorporate the ideas and the opinions of other students.
Take, for instance, potions class. Students create a potion and then act out how to use it to cast off a spell. The goal? To develop problem-solving skills. Theater Academy manager Katie Brantley says drama plays an important role in children navigating the world around them.
The arts are extremely important because it's through the arts that we process the world around us. It's through the arts that humanity makes sense of things. And also how humanity expresses what we are thinking and feeling.
Playing a game of Quidditch sparks team building, strategic planning, and sportsmanship. Harrison Howland is a huge Harry Potter fan, and this class was the perfect way to spend part of his summer.
I learned plenty of spells. One of the people in my class has a little spell book. I really enjoyed mystical creatures. It's kind of tough, but I get used to it.
Wizardry and magic aside, Katie says these classes offer kids something they might not get in school or other aspects of their lives.
I mean, the arts is important on many levels. There is the enjoyment, entertainment factor, but there's also, I think, something deeper about the arts that lets us, when we tap into that creative side, and I think everybody has felt it at some time in their life when they've, found that creative solution to a problem. There's something so rewarding and fulfilling about being able to create.
Child's Place classes run until August 1st and are available for kids from ages 4 to 13. Fall classes are also offered. Visit their website for more information on classes and a look at performances scheduled for the 2014 season. Friday on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll have more on yesterday's problematic execution of Arizona inmate Joseph Wood, and we'll recap the Republican gubernatorial primary debate as seen here on Arizona Horizon. That's Friday at 5:30 and 10 on the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.